Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and to not lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, 'Grant me justice against my opponent.' For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to God's chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will God delay long in helping them? I tell you, God will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?'" May God bless the reading of this word to our hearts and minds. Here's what happens. One morning, a widow wakes up, and she decided that she's just had enough about the way she is living. And she went to ask for help from an official, a local official, who had the power to remedy her situation. There is so much to unpack just in that sentence that it bears repeating. So I'm going to read it to you again. One morning, a widow wakes up and decided she has had enough of the way she's living. And she went to ask for help from an official who had the power to remedy her situation. Let's pull it apart. Does anyone know what is a widow? I know we have a modern version of widow, right? Someone who's lost their husband. But the word in Greek, widow, means just simply one without. That's what widow means, one without. So perhaps, yes, without a husband, perhaps without money, without food, definitely without means, definitely without voice or rights. She represents someone who has been treated unfairly by her opponent, as she calls her. Now, opponent is a legal term from Greek that simply means anti-justice. So she has been treated unfairly by the justice system. She represents the most exploited. She represents the ones who have been oppressed under the giant wheel of the system. She represents everyone who has ever felt marginalized. The widow would have no legal grounds to do anything about their situation, but rather was forced to live in poverty, most of the time in rundown neighborhoods, most of the time with unsanitary conditions, substandard health care, no easy access to food, no money to buy any. Sound familiar? A widow could have no one to speak for her. All this, our lovely widow knew. Yet she goes to a judge to grant her the protection she needs. You could say she did it out of desperation. That's an easy answer. You'd probably be right. A desperate person will do anything to remedy their situation, or they might not. But we'll come back to that in a minute. Because we need to get to know who Jesus calls the unjust judge. A judge who fears neither God nor has respect for people. So right away, we can surmise a few things about this judge. Most importantly, hear this, the judge is not God. Right? Because this judge is unjust. Who was the judge then? Here's a little background from first century Judaism about what a judge was or was not. A judge was not the person responsible for hearing trials, like they do today, under state law or adjudicating specific cases in that light. Robert Lithcom says, he was the primary interpreter of the Torah. What is the Torah? First 5 books of the Bible, but what does it represent to the Jewish people? The law. The law. So he was the primary interpreter of the Torah. He advocated serious differences between people in light of the Torah. These judges were, the gospel calls them scribes. Scribes were actually the judges. They adjudicated the Torah while the rabbis taught the Torah. What was particularly important, says let's come to understand, was that at the time of Jesus, judges worked for and were responsible to the political, religious systems of their day, which was the temple priesthood, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees. The scribes worked for them. Consequently, they interpreted the Torah in ways that would protect the system. Does that make sense? So they're not so much interested in supporting justice as they were in interpreting that Torah in ways that would both maintain and extend the power of wealth of Israel's ruling elite, including themselves, and especially the priesthood. So do you understand what this is saying? This is saying that they were going to interpret the law, the scripture, in a way that would keep some in power and keep gaining power, and some in poverty, because you can't have power without poverty, right? So Jesus assumes all of his listeners will undoubtedly know this, because this is what was popular in the day. So all of the peasants Jesus was talking to, they would understand already, yes, the widow is going to someone, yes, this guy is not going to give her any help, because this is our reality. So now we understand the reason, at least, for the judge saying, I have no fear of God, nor any respect for anyone. He was on the take. And his job was to protect the ones above his pay grade. If he caused a rift in the system, he would jeopardize not just them, but his own future. So based on what we know about judges, wanting to sustain and even promote the systems in place, we can surmise about this judge that there were, and about the people above him, that everybody was benefiting for keeping this widow in poverty. Does that make sense? Shake your heads if it makes sense, so I know you're hearing me. Great. So why did he finally relent? Why would he reinterpret the law? Because that's what had to happen in order for her to leave him alone. Why would he reinterpret the law so that it would be in her favor? The text says she bothered him. She persisted. I don't get that. Because putting up with her every day, says the scribe, was worse than the ramifications of changing the law? What? Why didn't he just have her taken away? That was within his legal right. Why didn't he just put her in jail? Why would you change your mind? Why would you risk your career just because someone could exhaust you? Perhaps this judge or this scribe is not also what he sees. Both the widow and the judge are archetypes in our story. They have been identified, they have been categorized, they have been labeled by the author of Luke, by Jesus, even by me. We understand them to act in a certain way. We understand them to act in a way that we think someone in their situation should or would act. So when they don't, like the widow finding the strength to fight for herself and a powerful person risking their career for a marginalized person, it surprises us. That's the problem with labels. While they might help us define a person, they also limit and even box in our understanding of that person. And labels, make no mistake, work both ways. In the same way that we identify a person, we also identify and label ourselves, don't we? We expect a person to act in a certain way based on their identity. We also, based on our identity, expect ourselves to act a certain way. For example, I'm a pastor. When I say that out loud to a person, I'm a pastor. There are specific things that come to mind of that person depending on what their understanding of pastor is, positive or negative. But either way, they expect certain things of me. They expect a certain way of acting, a way of listening, and a way of being from me. But I've also got an understanding of what it means to say, I'm a pastor out loud. It gives me a specific understanding of myself in that way. How will I act? How will I engage people? How will I engage the world? How will I even engage God? Pastor informs how I move through life, my behavior, my beliefs. It can limit me. It can free me to do or not do certain things. I want us to think about this morning some of the labels that we've put on ourselves. We self-identify in all kinds of ways. I'm retired. I'm single. I'm a woman. I'm gay. I'm diabetic. I'm unemployed. I'm an artist. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm divorced. I'm a student. I'm a chaplain. I'm pregnant. I'm not pregnant. You have your own stuff, right? Your own labels. But for all the ways we self-identify, there are equal number of labels that others have put upon us, that our society has put on us, or even that the church has put on us. Like this widow. It was the scribe's interpretation of the Torah that limited who and what she was. How many identities have we taken on because of the interpretation of the religious community? I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. I'm a sinner. I'm not welcome. I'm not good enough. I'm saved. I'm unlovable the way I am. And this is where we have to look back at the widow, because everything in her experience, the way the world identified her, the way the church identified her, they were all in agreement. Widow, stay in your place. Except that wasn't going to cut it for her, because this widow refused to see herself the way others saw her, the way society saw her, the way the church saw her. When she gazed into that mirror in the morning, instead of choosing to see the reflection of one without, that everyone told her she was, she instead saw her true nature. She had been made in the image of God. Not the God she learned about. Not the God who had been labeled exclusive or wrathful or punitive. No. She was a mirror reflection of the Creator God, a reflection of the Word, a reflection of the universal Christ that is in everyone and everything. She was good. She was holy. She was sacred. She, despite the world, the church, even her family might have told her she was God, mirror to the world. God's mirror to the world. Others would see the light of God in her reflection, in her face, in her walk, in her actions, in her being. And you know what? She was worth fighting for. Not because of what she had done or what she had not done, but not because whether or not she was justified within the law or not. She was worth it because she was a valuable creation of God. And I believe that something, perhaps it was being confronted by somebody who saw themselves as holy and worthy and sacred, and as the image of God, but something, I believe, changed the unjust judge as well. Yes, she exhausted him. Of course she did. But again, this is someone who has no recourse. Just throw her in jail. Stop her from coming in at the door. But he didn't. Why? Because I don't care who you are. I don't care how hard-nosed you are. When you come face to face with the Christ in someone, you cannot just brush them off. And no matter how hard the heart, seeing that person day after day after day does something to you. Like it or not, sooner or later, your eyes have to meet the eyes of that person. Maybe not on day 1, maybe not on day 10, maybe not on day 100, but imagine seeing that person every single day, every day. Even at the seemingly lowest level, you know what's being built? Relationship. Relationship is being built up. By that time, you've sized each other up. You've come to understand what the other is made of. And this judge could not see, or could see, that despite his expectations for somebody in her situation, this persistent widow was carrying something inside of her that was not going to give up on herself. And guess what? She was carrying something inside of herself that was not going to give up on him. She called him out. She called on him to do the right thing. And even he, not fearing God or anyone, gave her what she needed. So I ask you, First Baptist, my beloved congregation of Christ, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? You no doubt will see the image of God, for sure. There is one little caveat in that. You'll see the image of God, but you might see the image of God that depends a lot on how you see God. It's why we went through all of those beautiful attributes of God during the prayer time. How we see God determines how we see the God in us. How we see God in that mirror determines how we approach God in prayer. And we're going to be talking about that next week as well. But I want you to think about that. When you look in the mirror, when you go in prayer to God, do you see the reflection of perfect love? Do you see a mirror that will never look away? Do you see a mirror that will never say no? Your eye is the nature of God. Widow, judge, sinner, saint, Christian, saved, believer, ugly, dumb, whatever you think of yourself, you are loved. You are loved. Formed in the image of love. May God bless you this morning.